Aloha. I had to do a follow-up video to the NewAge limitation program in reference to the psychological and the spiritual warfare that's going on, and specifically call out these two individuals once again. I did it twice in two other videos, and now I wanted to take it even further in reference to the last two videos I actually put together, which expanded upon the psychological and spiritual warfare of the mind control program of the understanding, understanding, and overstanding awareness, or lack thereof, that is manipulated by particular versions of reality or streams of consciousness. These individuals, like Teal, Swan, and Infinite Waters, they are, and let me give a disclaimer. Obviously, I've said in previous videos, if this is like a first video for you or whatever, quick disclaimer, I understand that everybody is on their own journey, and yes, these individuals do share information that is helpful and beneficial for somebody. At the same time, you are not only working and speaking as in with yourself. We are all connected in this storyline, and if you pigeonhole yourself into a particular version of consciousness and simultaneously keep yourself away from other information, that could be potentially dangerous. And this is why I'm making this video now, because it's no different than these activists and these celebrities and the mainstream media as a whole, and their design to expand the psychological warfare underneath the guise of forward progress. How I see these individuals is no different than a politician. These are basically new age politicians, and since you get information from them that is beneficial for your so-called spiritual, psychological, and sometimes even physical progression, they're not really held accountable for the 360-degree perspectives that they're engaging in the entire human storyline. Now, I'm not saying this to have any expectations on them. I'm saying this, I'm sharing this information to help people see other perspectives other than being trapped within these zones that a lot of these people get caught up in the Obama program, and you can't say shit about Obama or else you'll get attacked, or if you say anything about Beyonce, you'll get attacked. If you say anything about, channelers, you'll get attacked. Whatever it is, this is why I'm addressing this information stream, these streams of consciousness, is because how I see them, they are no less damaging now as at the level of consciousness that I perceive humanity's perspective right now. They are no less damaging than the mainstream media as a whole. They are no less damaging than the politicians as a whole. These new age politicians, just like regular politicians, are designed to keep you at a particular vibration so that maybe they might be directly engaged in how it all plays out in the overstanding of the storyline, because they focus so much on the understanding. And even he says in here, this is Infinite Waters diving deep. He doesn't dive deep. He dives deep in the kiddie pool. He dives deep in reference to the understanding at best of the reality. And he stops it right at the edge of the deep end. He will not go any further than the shallow end of the pool, because that is where the threshold is for his subscriber base. If he goes any further into the deep end of sharing information into the overstanding of this situation, basically what this boils down to is that the new age will be revealed for what it is. Because when you go into the deep end, you're going into the ancestors. You're going into the... And some people say, oh, well, he's referenced Egypt and all these other stuff in the past. And no, this is not what I'm saying. I'm saying once you go into the deep end, there is no going back and swimming back in that little shallow wading pool anymore. The only reason why people stay in that space is because they need to maintain a particular follow. There's more people in the shallow end. So you can surround yourself with people. There's more people that need information in that space that will never, that, I don't want to say never. There's just more people there. And there's more people that are needy and vulnerable and insecure in that space. So people turn themselves into celebrities when they're surrounded by people who are constantly in that vibration. Like I said in the beginning of this and other videos, I'm not saying necessarily there's anything wrong with that. Up to a point. Because just like the New Age, when I went through it, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about humanity. I learned a lot about consciousness and alchemy and so on and so forth. But once I got to the point of realizing that this storyline is not only limited to the understanding and the understanding of yourself, but it's in the overstanding of humanity, the earth plane, and the alchemy of the entire balances of nature as a whole. People like Teal, Swan, and Infinite Waters have turned themselves into something like a guru that wants to take advantage of people. Now that might not be their intention, but once you get up to a particular threshold, once you start peeking over into that deep end of the pool, and you constantly swim back to the kiddie pool and constantly say, diving deep. You're not diving deep. You're not. You're shallow as fuck. And that's why they have to do these videos talking about authenticity and all this other shit. About like being, it's solely personal. And it maxes out at the understanding. And if you max out at the understanding, which is the intention of the New Age program, the Oprah, the Deepak Chopra, the Super Soul Sunday, it's basically Super Soul someday. It's constantly living in the future. These two individuals are like crystals. They're tools. And why I'm making this video right now is because they are not, they're setting the example for humanity to turn themselves into a New Age understanding tool that is in fact disempowering when you come from the perspective of the overstanding of what's really going on here. When you start to unravel the government, the NASA programming, the heliocentric model, you start unraveling the garbage that is the foundation to the New Age programming. That is the foundation to the understanding limitation program. And like I said, people can defend constantly, oh, well, they are there to do this, to do that, whatever. How I'm seeing this, it is very fucking dangerous to constantly be acting like everything is fucking okay and beautiful and great, and it's fake, it's weak. It's actually creating a deeper layer of sickness and disease. It's creating a deeper layer of insecurity It's like spiritual insecurity in people when they can't maintain that space. And when you hold that space, you actually create a scenario where people will end up sucking up more tools or creating more, what's the word? Gap fillers. They create gap fillers in their world instead of truly diving deep into what's going on. There is a max out point at the understanding when you need to start venturing into the overstanding. Like I said in previous videos in reference to the New Age, the main intention of the New Age is to keep you in the understanding program and not venture into the overstanding of how the entire system works, the spiritual warfare works. These individuals focus on the psychological warfare, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. People need to understand that there's a psychological warfare going on. But if you make a business, like the New Age does, makes a business with The Secret, with Oprah, with Super Soul Sunday, with Cryon speaking at the United Nations. When you make a business out of that limitation, being completely aware of the overstanding, you're actually disempowering people. And it's counterproductive. And it's more evident when individuals like this don't speak on information like challenging the globe model, the heliocentric model, and speaking on flat earth stuff, and even going even deeper into the Mandela effect and how they're referencing it to CERN and all that other stuff. And you're not diving deep. This shit is shallow. And these individuals are not dumb. So knowing that they're not dumb and they know all this information, they are aware, they have a certain state of, for lack of a better word, wokeness, then there's an intention why they're not going any further. This is fluff. It's fake as shit. It's imbalanced, ultimately. Completely imbalanced. It is the face of the love and light New Age agenda. This intention, this atmosphere of persona is the intention of the New Age program. To keep people in this state of dull, inactive plastic fire that maxes out at only concerning yourself with yourself and not at all connecting with the storyline of humanity. Constantly engaging in shutting down and going inward. Like I said, there's nothing wrong, but you have to have a balance. It becomes a problem when you only go inward and you never venture into understanding how that same storyline is having an effect on the human design, the earth plane, and nature as a whole. That's the intention of this shifting of consciousness that is being manipulated by the New Age program and so on and so forth. The secret space program, constantly keeping you focused on the star system, the star systems, the UFOs, the future. This is that super soul someday mentality that keeps people dormant, overstandingly dormant. You can be the most understanding individual on the face of the earth, but if you do not venture into questioning the reality that the rest of your brothers and sisters on the earth plane are subject to every day, you are actually no better than the individuals who are creating designs to keep people dormant, because this is the design to do it. What's the difference between being caught up in anger and destruction and war every moment of your life? What's the difference between that and being lost and caught up in the so-called love and light, so super happy, super indigo, whatever energy, super diving deep perspective? It's the same thing. It's just another version of polarization. And that's where I'm seeing this whole mind control program of the shifting of the parasite is actually thriving off of this, because what happens is nothing happens. It's just another form of inaction, while the so-called powers that be can just continue to expand the program right around a new so-called new foundation. And the main thing, that one of the main reasons why I have such a problem with this is that these individuals are the face of these two are the face of the so-called new age. And why I say that is because there's nothing new here. Every single video that they've made, every single point that they have made has already been made by the ancestors, not only on an understanding perspective, but on a human overstanding perspective. And very seldom will these two individuals ever reference or even mention, or it's about linking it back, anchoring it back. The point is, if you never anchor it within the ancestral threads, then you are creating another kingdom for yourself to be worshipped within. That's an extreme version to explain it, but you can see how people who are going to defend, dislike this video or defend or whatever it is. It's the same thing that happens with Beyonce and the Jesus programming and the Obama programming, the Democrats and Republican. It's no different. The realm of overstanding goes into not only releasing the density and diving deep within yourself, but diving deep within the human self. And in order to dive deep within the human self, you have to be able to ground yourself and root yourself within the ancestral perspectives wholly, completely, without having to need that information to be linked back to you personally. These little 10, 15, 20-minute videos that are being pumped out, all about love and light and all this other nonsense that has an intention in some kind of way, it's not being linked back to you, since it's just being said by the individual. And Teal does this same shit. Teal does this constantly, and Teal's actually been busted out by a bunch of people on the internet about how none of this shit they're saying is new. They're not saying anything new. But since they're just saying it and it feels good, and they don't link it back to the overstanding perspective, it's just them saying it. Since they don't link it back to the overstanding perspective, they stay in that inner standing, just, keep focusing all your energy on. I got to adjust this fire as that smoke is coming up in here. They tell you just keep doing, just keep playing with crystals. Keep focusing on, oh, there it is. Keep playing with crystals. Keep just soaking up these tools. And don't really make the connection to what's happening to people on the other side of the earth plane. Don't make any of those connections. In fact, it's not your problem. That's what's that's what's inherently being said, is when you don't make the connections back with the ancestors, when you don't reconnect, you constantly focus all that information, energy in yourself, as if you put all this stuff together by yourself. Then you're just creating another gap in people inherently, because they will not know how to do that themselves, and it focuses on them instead of the truly empowered space of us facing this issue from a collective perspective. See, when the reason why the New Age is doing what it's doing is because it's okay for people to just approach this so-called expansion of consciousness from the perspective of the individual, because if you constantly stay focused on the individual, you won't do anything about what's happening to everybody else. You will. So that is the New Age version of separation. It's underneath the guise of empathy and compassion and love and light, but it's just another form of apathy. It's apathy sugar-coated with compassion and empathy. And they constantly, each one of these videos is just an apathy, an empathy and compassion and love and light coated apathy pill. Yeah, that's true. Because people just keep sucking, they keep sucking the sugar, the compassionate sugar, the so-called empathetic. I'm such an empath. I feel so deeply about things. Don't do anything about it. Don't say anything about it. Don't expand that to where that comes from. Just watch another one of these little 15-minute ass videos where you're constantly diving deep, sucking up that good ass prana every day. As long as everybody did this every day, everything will be perfect. Fucking garbage. It's ridiculous. It's counterproductive, ultimately. It's fucking dangerous. Because if you're, each one of these videos is about something new. Like, this is supposed to be new. This ain't new. This is not new. Nothing you're saying is new. But when you say it from the perspective of it is new, then you're creating limitations under the guise of knowledge and expanding consciousness. And of course, nobody's going to say anything about this. Nobody's going to mention this information because it's positive. Like, why would you say anything about? And normally I wouldn't say anything to individuals that like Infinite Waters or Teal, Swan, because they're just like this. But how I'm seeing it, how I reference this, the importance of this is that most people are already aware of the politics and the parasitism of the politics and the mainstream media and the university system and so on and so forth, the fiat currency system. Most people are aware of that information. So what most people aren't aware of is what's happening next. What's going to be promoted next as the next control grid. And when you come from that perspective, then you can understand that that next control grid is just as important in referencing as the downfalls of politics and people. It's keeping people from stepping into other traps, other boxes. And I've gone through those boxes. I've gotten out of there. And I know that these individuals, in particularly these two faces that I'm using as a reference to show you that. Another reference is like this spirit science. There people heard of them. It's the same shit. It's just getting caught up, just like the flat earth. Okay, so this is a good example, and I'll end on this. Just as much as the flat earth community focuses on the so-called science of the flat earth and whether or not there's a dome and going to the edge and all that other shit, and never references the human story or what the implications are of the heliocentric model, the origins of the heliocentric model, the origins of the university system, and everything that's connected to that system and how that relates to everyday life. If you don't mention that shit, it's dangerous. You're just creating another distraction for people. And what if tomorrow they started talking about the flat earth and it went mainstream? Now what? You haven't set up anything to have people expand their awareness outside of the system that created the program of enslavement in the first place. You've just allowed them to just walk into another trap. So just as much as the so-called flat earth community gets caught up in the basic nuts and bolts of the obviousness of, yes, okay, well, we are questioning the globe. Now what? Okay, well, it's flat. Oh, it's flat. Oh, we just need to see the sciences of that. Okay, well, you can only talk about that stuff, yes, but for only so long until it gets stale and dull and dry, and you're going to eventually have to start to understand the human story, which is actually the empowered space of realizing what's going on. That's what will inherently remove the power from the system. So just as much as the flat earth community does that, the so-called New Age community focuses on the side effects or the symptoms of a destructive past, a destructive history, and covers it up with love and light perspectives for the so-called future. But it just spins its wheels. It just stays there forever. It doesn't go any further than that. So what if tomorrow the United Nations or whoever says, we're going to fix everything. Everything is about the new age, and we're going to new age the shit out of everything. It's going to be peaceful and so on and so forth. And there's the next control grid. Now what? Now you have happy slaves. This is why this shit is so dangerous. Because expanding or your consciousness or even going into this realm of so-called what the new age is commercializing, you're talking about humanity. You're talking about nature. You're talking about the ancestors. And if we don't start at the roots, this shit wants to start, the new age idea is trying to start at the branches fix how the tree looks from the branches. It doesn't want to go into the roots. It's dirty down there, and when you go and you put your hands in the soil and you get into them roots, it's dangerous down there. People don't want to go down there. So they stay in this Fluffville, this fluffy reality, and tell you this is what it's all about. When ultimately they're just making you look the other way. Don't pay attention to what's going on to your brothers and sisters anywhere else. Act like it doesn't exist. What's the difference between that and Democrats and Republicans? And stealing 4 to 8 years of people's movement because they constantly just stay in the world of Democrats and Republicans. Oh, well, we got a Republican president this year, so or this time, so I guess we're just stuck with them for 4 years. Just keep my head down and go to work. Don't expect any change for the next 4 years. That's stealing time. Ain't no different than this New Age perspective. Just keep your head down, don't worry about anything. But humanity has a bigger potential than that. It's not only about, just like it's not only about the actual physicality of the earth plane and the flat earth community, it's not only about the vibrations and frequencies of what's going on in your own little bubble. We're more complex than that. But since same way with like the flat earth community, they want to what's the word? I almost made up a word out of complexify. They want to make the so-called perspectives or looking into, there's a word, it's an easy word, I can't think of it right now. Damn it. They want to make the physicality of the flat earth so complex that they can talk about it forever. This is why I can't look at any of like those videos anymore that are only talking about flat earth, those big flat earth channels. They're just repeating themselves or arguing with globe heads or whatever. It just fucking, it's garbage now. Are you going to stay there forever? What are you going to do 2-3 years from now if they're still not talking about flat earth? You still just keep doing that? It has to expand to humanity. We have to expand these storylines. So just as much as they try to make complex the physicality of the possibilities of the flat earth, the New Age community and individuals like Infinite Waters and Teal, Swan try to make you infinitely complex on the understanding perspective. And you can talk about this stuff, obviously. Look at all these videos. It's probably over 1,000 videos that he's done. Same with Teal, Swan, and interviews and so on. And just like any other New Age, making the understanding space so complex, you can make you can make a living off of it. You can make a life off of sciencing the shit out of consciousness from the understanding perspective, from a completely love and light perspective. Never looking into the fabric and the balances of this reality. Never going into that. It's dangerous. And stuff like this is why I kind of made this video, because the speaking in reference to the university system, or speaking about the university system, the NASA programming, the heliocentric model, this is where it's a pivot point for the so-called New Age community, where they don't want to go into that, because then they start to go into the overstanding world, which is the deeper edge of the pool. So they want to make a living off of one perspective. And that becomes dangerous because it's imbalanced. And I'll leave it there, because that's basically the heart of why I made this video. And at the slim chance that even either one of these individuals see this video, that's what I want to be known. Because I am concerned. Just as much as I am concerned and aware of the New Age agenda, I am aware of the downfalls of approaching your inner and outer awareness from a only inner perspective. It leaves a lot of stuff out, and it creates a lot of artificiality. And when people are creating artificiality, they're just using a lot of other tools to cover up things. And it slows movement. It's disingenuous, ultimately. So, anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.